We wanted to find out more about Kurt's last days from Dylan Carlson, who had bought the gun that killed Kurt. This is the pop promo for Dylan's band, Earth. This is Crooked Access for String Quartet from Dylan's new album. We eventually arranged to meet Dylan. We were told he was living with a dealer who had an Uzi, and we should wait on the street. Dylan himself was immortalized in Kurt's song, In Bloom. I found Dylan to be evasive and in a very defensive position. As Kurt's best friend, it was crazy for him to have bought the gun if he thought Kurt was suicidal. And yet at the same time, he didn't want to appear to be supporting Tom Grant's murder theory. And what about his relationship with Courtney?
Obviously, I mean, I think obviously it was going through some turbulence. Whether it was going to end or not, we don't know, or I don't think we ever will. I mean, but I mean, all marriages go through their ups and downs.
Did he ever say anything to you about, I mean, you seem to say it to plenty of other people.
He said what?
That he was going to finish the relationship.
Divorce. I mean, he never flat out said anything like that or any implications about it to me.
What did he...
I mean, he didn't even make any hints, as far as I know, about any kind of divorce or anything like that.
What, I mean, if you were his best friend and he didn't say anything about being depressed or being suicidal and he just wanted the gun for prowlers and that Rome was just an accident, maybe you think also he could have been murdered.
Why? I mean, it's like...
Well, if you were his best friend,
and
he never said anything about anything being wrong, and he'd seen you just before, maybe Tom Grant's right. Maybe he.
But I mean, he doesn't have to say anything about it being wrong. I mean, it's like, when you're friends with someone, there's like subtler forms of information transfer than just flat out,
So what did he subtly communicate to you?
I mean, it's like, I'm just saying, it's like, why...
Well, I'm just trying to get a sense of what he did communicate to you, what you understood.
I mean, the thing is, it's like, the time he would have been communicating any sort of, sense that he wanted to kill himself was already was when he came back from Exodus, when I didn't see him,
But if he bought the gun before he went, and you think he was now suicidal...
I don't think he was necessarily, like, planning to kill himself at that point, necessarily. I mean, I don't know, though. I mean...
It was just a coincidence.
I mean, it's like... I mean, if he had been, like, totally suicidal from the outset, he would have used the gun that day, probably, or something. You know what I mean? Why did he, like, go down to try to go through treatment?
Why do you think?
I mean, because there was all the fucking pressure on him to go through treatment. His wife's telling him he needs to go through treatment. His record company, his management, they're all like, oh, you have to get off drugs. And so he goes and he tries to get off drugs and he can't or doesn't want to. I mean, it's like, basically he doesn't want to, because it's like, there's no reason for him not to there's no reason for him to get off drugs, It's not like he's, like, poverty-stricken and robbing grocery stores to supply his habit.
But how was Courtney telling him to be off drugs when she was on them anyway?
I don't know, because she was the one, because she was all gung-ho for him to quit. I mean, they were both constantly like, I mean, you know, trying to hide it from one another. I mean, there was like the most ridiculous example is one time Kurt called me up to get him some speed, and then the other line rang, and I answered the other line, and it was Courtney asking me to get her dope, and both of them were like, oh, don't let the other one know.
I don't know what I think about the whole murder conspiracy.
Put it this way, if I seriously thought Kurt had been murdered, the people, if I thought Courtney was involved, or if I thought, you know, they would be dead now, flat out. I would kill them if I thought that was the case. You know?
Mm.
I mean,
But don't you think it's curious that if Courtney, as you said, loved Kurt so much, and she was really so worried about him, she knew he had a gun, thought he was suicidal, that she didn't come up to Seattle to look for him?